4. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right to where the priest stood, and to carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stayed tonight." So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of Israelites, to serve a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was called up before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan and the water of the Jordan were cut up, these stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of Israelites, as the Lord had told Joshua, and they carried them over with them to their camp, where they put them down. Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priests who carried the ark of the covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. Now the priests who carried the ark remained standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything the Lord had commanded Joshua was done by the people, just as Moses had directed Joshua. The people hurried over, and as soon as all of them had crossed, the ark of the Lord and the priest came to the other side where the people watched. The men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of the Manasseh crossed over, armed in front of the Israelites, as Moses had directed them. About 40,000 armed for battle crossed over before the Lord to the plains of the Jericho for war. That day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they revered him all the days of his life, just as they had revered Moses. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Command the priest carrying the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan." So Joshua commanded the priest to come up out of the Jordan. And the priest came out of the river carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. No sooner had they set their feet on the dry ground than the water of the Jordan returned to their place and ran at a flood stage forever. As before, on the 10th day of the first month, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilead on the eastern border of Jericho. Joshua set up at Gilead and 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, In the further, when your descendants ask their fathers, "What does this stone mean?" and tell them, "Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground, for the Lord your God dried out the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did the Jordan just what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the people of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God." 5. Now when all the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanian kings all along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until we had crossed over, their hearts melted, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath Harod. Now this is why he did so. All those who came out of Egypt, all the men of military age, died in the desert on the way after leaving Egypt. All the people that came out of the been circumcised, but all the people born in the desert during the journey from Egypt had not. The Israelites had moved about the desert 40 years until all the men who were the military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land that he had solemnly promised their father to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So he raised up their sons in their place, and these were the ones Joshua circumcised. They were still uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. And after the whole nation had been circumcised, they remembered where they were in camp until they were healed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away a report of Egypt from you. So the place has been called Gilead to this day. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilead on the plain of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. The manna stopped the day after they ate this food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commanders. For the enemies of the Lord I have not come. Now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals for the place where you are standing in holy." And Joshua did so. 6. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the people will go up, every man straight in." So Joshua son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of him." And he ordered the people, "Advance, march around the city with the armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord." When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward. Blowing their trumpets, the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests, the armed guard who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time, the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the people, "Do not give a war cry, do not raise your voice, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, clinging its wands. Then the people returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early in the next morning, and the priests looked up at the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, while the trumpet kept sounding. So on the 2nd day, they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. Except that on that day, they circled the city 7 times. It's the 7th time around. When the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitution and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel to the destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are scared of the Lord and must go into his treasury." When the trumpet sounded, the people shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the people gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So every man charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, man and woman, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out of the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out and all who belongs to her, in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother and brother and all who belonged to her. They brought out her entire family and put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. Then they burned the whole city and everything in it. But they put the silver and gold and the architects of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute, with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the man Joshua had sent to spies at Jericho, and she lives among the Israelites to this day. At that time, Joshua pronounced this solemn oath: "Cursed before the Lord is the man who undertakes to rebuild this city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son will he lays in foundations. At the cost of his youngest will he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land.